Welcome, fellow watch lovers. Today we're looking at the San Martin Flieger style watch, and we have the blue sunburst variant. This is a type A type of Flieger watch, with the hour markers being most prominent. So to talk about the specifications here, we have sapphire crystal, blue sunburst dial here. We have a stainless steel case. It is primarily brushed just about everywhere, other than there is a chamfer around the bezel that has some polishing on it, but otherwise it is very much a brushed everywhere watch, which you kind of expect and hope for in a tool watch. I certainly appreciate all the brushing everywhere, and that was certainly a draw to this. It does have a little bit of polishing around hex logo on the bottom, as well as the chamfer on the side of the bracelet, but rather minor overall. The hands of the watch, the minute hand extends to the minute track, as well as the second hand extends well out to the edge. Certainly appreciate the proportions here, and I think that they got those right. I like the simple uncluttered dial, the fact that there's no date window, and the focus is really on telling the time and telling the time fairly efficiently. So that's one of the things that makes this a standout watch to me. Typical of the Flieger design. Everything feels well executed on the watch. The brushing, you can see the circular brushing on the case is well done, as well as on the bezel, on the bracelet. It has a nice luster to it. The C3 Super Luminovo is also nice and bright, which I think is important on this style of watch where you're looking for legibility. The movement on this is an Epson YN55 movement. I only have a few watches with this in it. Read that they're nice and reliable. Obviously, I'm aware that they're used in some Orient watches, but I don't have enough longevity to speak to that. I will say the crown action here is very well executed. It is on my other watches, as well as what I've read, the movement feels a little bit more gritty to turn than the Seiko NH35. I think they reminds me a little bit of the Miura 8215, but slightly more refined than that, but definitely not as smooth as the Seiko NH35. But the crown is very grippy and easy to wind. It does have a ghost date position, but I personally don't really have a problem with that. Of course, if you remove complications, then it's nice from a reliability perspective, potentially, but I'm not someone who really gets hung up on whether or not it has the ghost date or not. I figure these are going to be more plentiful in terms of trying to find a replacement movement down the road than the ones that would not have the date function in there anyways. Bracelet, incredibly well executed. The clasp, very well executed. My only criticism on the watch is really actually the clasp and the fact it only has 2 micro adjustments. That ends up making this watch so that it fits a little bit loose on my wrist. Some people will be able to find the perfect fit with those 2 adjustments as well as that, but for me it just ends up fitting just a little bit looser than I'd want, and if this was one of the 4-button clasps, this watch would be really perfect for me for the design of what it is, and I would have no complaints at all. You can argue that some of the edges are a little bit sharper on the bracelet and then the case than some other San Martin watches are. I'd say that that's true, but it's not like they're sharp and uncomfortable, at least to me. I like it. I feel that they're well finished, but just something to be aware of if you're sensitive to that, I guess. It does have the milled clasp, has a nice click to it. The bracelet, the clasp, the plus side of the clasp being the fact that it is shorter than the 4 mil, so it's kind of feels a little unobtrusive, doesn't really stand out as much, but other than that, would absolutely prefer having the four micro adjustments there that this one doesn't have. So I'm left-handed, but giving you a little wrist shot here. I think it sits very well. The female end links help bring it close to the wrist. Sits nicely on the wrist, other than it being a little bit looser than I prefer. I have no complaints about the feel of the watch. The bracelet is very high tolerances, so you don't have that jangly effect that you get on other budget-friendly watches. And is one of my favorite things about the San Martin brand is that usually you can basically count on the fact you're getting a very good bracelet that's tiers above others. So the size for my 7.5-inch wrist, it's 145 grams. Case diameter is about 39 millimeters. Width here, just under 20 millimeters. Tapers down to about 16. Then back up to over 18 on the clasp without the pushers. And it's a little over 12 millimeters thick. You have a nice flat crystal. It's raised very slightly above the case with a nice beveled edge finish. Now in terms of the dial color, this is the blue variant. In person, it almost starts getting just barely almost into a little teal, more than some of the pictures implied, and sort of the stock photos. I think probably look a little bit more navy. I like the color a lot. Dark portions do look navy, but then when the light hits it, it has a blue that's kind of an interesting blue. It's not really teal, but it's also not like, navy blue, that type of thing. Something to be aware of. I think the color combination works quite well. So my overall thoughts on the watch is that this one is, for me, definitely a keeper watch. It has really everything I would look for in a Flieger style watch personally. The bracelet, the clasp, I could obviously upgrade at a cost to buy one of the 4-pin versus swap that out if I wanted to make the investment to upgrade that. Love the brushing everywhere on the case. Crown action is really nice. I didn't take the blue stuff off here yet on the crown, but it is the San Martin hex logo, and I do like the fact it's a sterile dial where the focus really is just on the time, and I think that's really the right choice for a Flieger watch. And I know I've heard others say it too, that they really would probably never spend top dollar on a Flieger because of the fact that the design is so ubiquitous. And I agree with that, and I think this is a really nice quality to value ratio. I really appreciate the C3 Super Luminovo, which I think adds value against some of the cheaper options that are on the market, so that you really get that nice loomed effect. And overall, it just feels like a watch that punches much above the price point. I'd probably prefer an NH35, but who knows? Time may tell a different story, and maybe this one lasts even longer. Who knows? I hope this review has been helpful to you, and if you enjoy this type of content, please like and subscribe.